Budget 2016 was delivered on Tuesday with over $100 billion in spending over 5 years. But what will it mean to you as an investor? I'm talking with Sandra Bussey, high net worth planner at TD Wealth. Well, Sandra, there was a lot in the budget, but there were some things in there, maybe not in there, that we were actually expecting, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting. I know there was a lot of speculation in terms of what might be included in the federal budget. Lots of rumors circulating around the tax community. One of the things that wasn't included, that was speculated that would be included in there, was a change in the capital gains inclusion rate. So right now, if somebody realizes a capital gain, 50% of that capital gain is reported on their tax return as income. The speculation was that that rate might change and go up from up to 67%, possibly as high as 75%. And we haven't seen capital gains inclusion rates that high since 2000, but no change was made in this particular budget.
That was interesting. Now, personal tax rates, I thought, also were interesting. Were there any changes there?
There weren't any tax changes that were announced in this particular federal budget. But remember, there was the announcements that were made in December, whereby they increased the tax rate that would apply for people that earn more than $200,000 federally. And that rate went from 29% to 33%. But other than that, there were no other changes announced in the federal budget with regard to tax rates.
Okay, and did that at that time, back in December, change what happens in different provinces?
Well, certainly because the provincial rates are added on to the federal rates, we did see some particular provinces have a significant increase in their top marginal tax rates.
Notably New Brunswick.
Yes, so for someone living in New Brunswick and where they are in the top tax bracket, if they earn $1 of interest income, that's a fairly significant bite.
Pretty big. And so I guess it changes across whether it's dividends, capital gains, etc., different kinds of investments.
That's right. So one thing that investors have to realize is that $1 of investment income isn't taxed at the same rate. Depends on the type of investment income that you might be receiving. So if it's interest income, it's the highest rate. If it's dividend income, it's slightly lower, and then capital gains, it's 50% of the highest rate. So it does make a difference in terms of what type of investment income you're receiving and what kind of taxes you might pay on that income.
So that's a good reason then to check with your advisor and figure out if that mix is still right for you.
Correct, yeah.
All right. Now, a corporate class, I thought that was also interesting as well. There was some, or switch funds, as some people call them for short. What happened there?
So with those, recognize that a mutual fund can be organized in one of two ways. It can either be structured as a mutual fund trust, or it can be structured as a mutual fund corporation. And so for people that were investing in mutual fund trusts, when they switched from, let's say, a bond fund to an equity fund, that was a disposition for tax purposes. And if there was an accrued capital gain, they had to pay the taxes on that. Where they're investing in a mutual fund corporation, and they are switching between one class to another. Under the existing tax rules, that wasn't considered to be a disposition, and therefore there was no immediate tax consequences. So the budget has now changed that, and they're going to put mutual fund corporations on the same level playing field as mutual fund trusts are. So what's going to happen is effective October the 1st, where somebody does do a switch in a mutual fund corporation, that is going to be taxable.
Okay, right. So again.
So what they've done with this particular budget, which is interesting, is normally when they bring in a change, they make it effective as of the budget date. That's not what they've done in this case. They've basically said investors have until September the 30th to take a look at these kind of investments and determine whether or not there's anything that needs to be done before these new rules come in play.
All right, so check with your advisor again.
Check with your advisor to see whether or not that's something, maybe you've got embedded gains that you want to take advantage of. Maybe you want to do a switch so that it's not taxable, but you need to do that before October the 1st.
Right, okay. The next thing I found interesting, the labor-sponsored venture capital. Small change there. Very
small change, but right now under the existing rules, the tax credit for those was at 5%. And it was scheduled to be eliminated in 2017. What this budget done has basically reinstated that credit to 15% for provincially registered labor-sponsored venture capital corporations.
All right, so for people that might be interested in those, I guess you have to look at both return and risk, but again, a reason to go visit your advisor.
Absolutely.
And look into there. The other thing interesting I found, stock options weren't touched.
Yeah, this was another one where there was a lot of rumors floating around before Budget Day in terms of whether or not they were going to make any changes to the taxation of employee stock options. And surprisingly, there was none.
That is surprising. Small business as well, I believe the actual rate wasn't changed when expectations were that it might be lowered?
Well, the rate was scheduled to be lowered down to 9% by 2019. Right now it's 10.5%. But the government has decided to hold that rate at 10.5%. One of the things, though, that wasn't in the budget that was very much speculated about was whether or not they were going to limit the access to the small business rate for certain corporations and maybe follow the lead of Quebec. So Quebec, starting in January 2017, is saying that corporations that aren't in the primary or the manufacturing sector and don't employ more than 3 full-time employees will not get access to that lower corporate rate. Thought was that perhaps the federal government would follow suit, but that didn't happen in this particular budget.
All right. And there's, lots of other things we could talk about. We could probably go on for a few hours, but, there were a few things for parents, the new Canada Child Benefits. I thought that was interesting. Seniors do keep their income splitting, although I guess everybody else does not. Old age security, I guess, stays at comes back to 65 when people get that. College and university students don't have to start repaying those loans until they make $25,000 a year. So that'll help some children. So lots of, or some kids, a lot of reason for talking to your financial advisor.
Absolutely, and probably a good time right now because personal tax returns are just being done. You're going to have a chance to see what your tax bite was in 2015, and a good time to sit down with your advisor then and see if there's ways that you can lessen that bite.
All right. Thank you very much, Sandra.
Thanks for having me.
I've been joined by Sandra Bussey at TD Wealth. I'm MaryAnn. Thanks for watching.